An ending often makes or breaks a movie. There's nothing quite as satisfying as having the rug pulled out from under you, particularly in a thriller. But too many flicks that try to shock can't stick the landing. They're outlandish and illogical, or signal where the plot is headed. Not all of these films are entirely successful, but they have one important attribute in common. From the classic to the cultishly beloved, they involve hard-to-predict twists that really do blow viewers' minds, then linger there for days, if not life. Warning: massive spoilers below. 1. Psycho 1960. Alfred Hitchcock often constructed his movies like neat games that manipulated the audience. The master of suspense delved headfirst into horror with Psycho, which follows a secretary Janet Leigh who sneaks off with $40,000 and hides in a motel. The ensuing jolt depends on Leigh's fame at the time. No one expected the ostensible star and protagonist to die in a gory for-the-time shower, butchering only a third of the way into the running time. Hitchcock outdid that feat with the last-act revelation that Anthony Perkins' supremely creepy Norman Bates is embodying his dead mother. 2. Planet of the Apes 1968. No, not the botched Tim Burton remake that tweaked the original movie's famous reveal in a way that left everyone scratching their heads. The Charlton Heston starring sci-fi gem continues to stupefy anyone who comes into its orbit. Heston, of course, plays an astronaut who travels to a strange land where advanced apes lord over human slaves. It becomes clear once he finds the decrepit remains of the Statue of Liberty that helps in fact on a future Earth. The anti-violence message, especially during the political tumult of 1968, shook people up as much as the time warp. 3. Deep Red 1975. It's not rare for a horror movie to flip the script when it comes to unmasking its killer, but it's much rarer that such a film causes a viewer to question their own perception of the world around them. Such is the case for Deep Red, Italian director Dario Argento's Suspiria slasher masterpiece. A pianist living in Rome, David Hemmings comes upon the murder of a woman in her apartment and teams up with a female reporter to find the person responsible. Argento's whodunit is filled to the brim with gorgeous photography, ghastly sights, and delirious twists. But best of all is the final sequence, in which the pianist retraces his steps to discover that the killer had been hiding in plain sight all along. Rewind to the beginning and you'll discover that you caught an unknowing glimpse. 2. 4. Sleepaway Camp 1983. Sleepaway Camp is notorious among horror fans for a number of reasons: the bizarre, stilted acting and dialogue, hilariously amateurish special effects and 80s to their core fashions. But it's best known for the mind-bending ending, which, disclosure, reads as possibly transphobic today, though it's really hard to say what writer-director Robert Hiltzik had in mind. Years after a boating accident that leaves one of two siblings dead, Angela is raised by her aunt and sent to a summer camp with her cousin, where a killer wreaks havoc. In the lurid climax, we see that moody Angela is not only the murderer, actually a boy. Her aunt, who always wanted a daughter, raised her as if she were her late brother. The final animalistic shot prompts as many gasps as cackles. 5. The Usual Suspects 1995. The Usual Suspects has left everyone who watches it breathless by the time they get to the fake-out conclusion. Roger Verbalkin, Kevin Spacey, a criminal with cerebral palsy, regales an interrogator in the stories of his exploits with a band of fellow crooks, seen in flashback. Hovering over this is the mysterious villainous figure Kaiser Soze. It's not until Verbal leaves and jumps into a car that customs agent David Kujan realizes that the man fabricated details, tricking the law and the viewer into his fake reality, and is in fact the fabled Soze. 6. Primal Fear 1996. No courtroom movie can surpass Primal Fear's discombobulating effect. Richard Gere's defense attorney becomes strongly convinced that his altar boy client Aaron Edward Norton didn't commit the murder of an archbishop, with which helps charged. The stuttering Aaron has sudden violent outbursts in which he becomes Roy and is diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, leading to a not guilty ruling. Gere's lawyer visits Aaron about the news, and as he's leaving, a wandering maniacal Norton reveals that he faked the multiple personalities. 7. Fight Club 1999. Edward Norton is no stranger to taking on extremely disparate personalities in his roles. From Primal Fear to American History X, the unassuming actor can quickly turn vicious, which led to ideal casting for Fight Club, director David Fincher's adaptation of the Chuck Palahniuk novel. Fincher cleverly keeps the audience in the dark about the connections between Norton's timid, unnamed narrator and Brad Pitt's hunky, aggressive Tyler Durden. After the two start the titular bruising group, the plot significantly increases the stakes, with a club turning into a sort of anarchist terrorist organization. The narrator eventually comes to grips with the fact that he is Tyler and has caused all the destruction around him. 8. The Sixth Sense 1999. Early in his career, M. Night Shyamalan was frequently, perhaps a little too frequently, compared to Hitchcock for his ability to ratchet up tension while misdirecting his audience. He hasn't always earned stellar reviews since, but The Sixth Sense remains deservedly legendary for its final twist. At the end of The Ghost Story, in which little Haley Joel Osment can see dead people, it turns out that the psychologist Bruce Willis, who's been working with a boy, is no longer living himself, the result of a gunshot wound witnessed in the opening sequence. 9. The Others 2001. The Sixth Sense's climax was spooky, but not nearly as unnerving as Nicole Kidman's similarly themed ghost movie The Others, released just a couple years later. Kidman gives a superb performance in the elegantly styled film from the Spanish writer-director Alejandro Amenabar, playing a mother in a country house after World War II, protecting her photosensitive children from light and, eventually, dead spirits occupying the place. Only by the end does it become clear that SHE's in denial about the fact that SHE's a ghost, having killed her children in a psychotic break before committing suicide. It's a bleak, Capatua genuinely haunting yarn. 10. Mulholland Drive 2001. David Lynch's surrealist movies may follow dream logic, but that doesn't mean the plots can't be readily discerned. Mulholland Drive is his most striking work precisely because, in spite of its more wacko moments, it adds up to a coherent, tragic story. The mystery starts innocently enough with the dark-haired Rita Laura Elena Haring waking up with amnesia from a car accident in Los Angeles and piecing together her identity alongside the plucky aspiring actress Betty Naomi Watts. It takes a blue box to unlock the secret that Betty is in fact Diane, who is in love with and envious of Camilla, also played by Haring, and has concocted a fantasy version of their lives. The real Diane arranges for Camilla to be killed, leading to her intense guilt and suicide. Only Lynch can go from Nancy Drew to nihilism so swiftly and deftly.